Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And first and foremost, thank you all so much for joining me, tuning into these very inconsistent vlogs, but it's been fun and hopefully you're enjoying them. But last week we discussed experiencing cinema, and I recently had the chance to check out Dune Part 2 at my local Dolby Cinema. Shocker, I loved it. But anyways, carrying on, spoiler-free material here, so you don't have to worry about me ruining your movie experience. But with that said, it's one of those films that I knew that I would like going in. And to preface everything I'm going to say today, I don't go to the movies all the time. I don't go to see every single film. I only go to ones that I really have a strong gut feeling about. I'll take a look at a trailer, or I'll see who's attached to the film, who's directing, who's writing, who's doing the visual art and the sound art. And based on that, I may go see a movie. So you tell me that Denis Villeneuve is making a movie, or Christopher Nolan or Steven Spielberg's making something, it's already going to pique my interest. I'm probably going to go to the theater and see it. So that's one of the reasons, of course, that I went to see Dune Part 1 and 2. Part 2 being no exception, another masterpiece by Denis and his team. He tends to work with a lot of the same people, visual artists, sound artists, composers, actors, so on and so forth. And that to me is fantastic when you've got that level of consistency and trust amongst cast and crew and everybody involved, just a powerhouse of cinematic mastery. But I think the only people that maybe got swapped out this time around, the sound design team, some of the lead sound designers, I think, weren't attached to Part 2. Not sure why, but either way, it was still incredible sounding. A lot of the sound libraries carried over, and he was working this time, I think, with Richard King, who usually works with Christopher Nolan on most of his films. Before he was working with Mark Mangini, I think is his name, who had worked on Blade Runner 2049, Mad Max Fury Road, and of course Dune Part 1. So a lot of the great sounds that were designed by Mark and his team carried over to Part 2. And again, the film sounded incredible. Art on both sides, visually and acoustically. It's just something that you can go to the theater or watch at home and enjoy, either with your eyes closed or your ears shut, and you can enjoy both aspects of it. It's almost like visual or audio, ASMR, and it's just one of those experiences that feels like art that you would go to a museum for, right? Every scene, the lighting, the compositions, the color usage and compositions, the placement of the actors and the environments, it just is absolutely incredible, rich, detailed. You walk out of that theater feeling like you were there. You feel like you almost have to take a shower because you're covered in sand just from the immersive sound. And that's the major point that I like to drive home about the cinema experience. It's often very difficult to replicate the sound that you get at a movie theater or a really good home theater for most people, right? Again, kind of piggybacking off of the topic from last week, it's not always easy or affordable to replicate, that great cinema sound. And so when you're watching these movies in a theater, especially like my local Dolby Cinema, that sound, it blows you away. You feel it, right? When there's an explosion or a sandworm makes an appearance, you feel that rumble. You feel its presence as it's approaching you, and it reverberates throughout the whole theater. Just the whole cinema starts to shake, and it's a good thing. It's not distracting in any way, but it just makes you feel like you're there and that you're a part of the action. I promise this isn't a sponsored video. I just really love the experience that much. Again, it's something akin to a theme park ride, which is another reason I really suggest going out to see it. Even if you don't have access to an IMAX or a Dolby Cinema, even a standard theater showing is probably going to be a huge upgrade to what many of us have at home. But again, I'm lucky to have what I have, but there are obviously many of us that don't have, big speakers or anything like that are going to be able to present the same experience that we would get from a cinema showing. And this is just one of those movies that isn't made every day. You know, there are still great films. I'm not one of those people that thinks that they don't make great movies anymore. You know, I think anybody that says that is kidding themselves or is just so picky that they're probably incapable of enjoying life. There are a lot of great movies that are still being made to this day, and a lot of great reasons I think to still go to the movie theater, even with the ease of access through streaming. I think that movie theaters are still a thing that we can enjoy, and I really do suggest going out to seeing not all movies, not everything. You can be picky, trust your gut, watch a trailer, see who's attached to the film, and base your decision on that. I don't see every single movie in a theater, but something like this, something as epic as Dune, or something that Christopher Nolan would make, an Inception, a Tenet, Oppenheimer, Interstellar, Blade Runner 2049 I was mentioning before, a Spielberg film or something like that. Those are the types of movies that I generally know I'm going to go to the theater and I'm probably going to like. I tend to have a fairly good gut feeling about films and video games, and just kind of knowing based on, again, who's attached to it, or a trailer, or maybe a demo or something when it comes to games. And to reiterate, no exception here. So, yeah, but I think that artistic experience, that level of detail, that artistic eye that Denis has, and a lot of the cinematographers and lighting specialists that he works with, just, I don't know, they just know how to capture the ambience, the atmosphere, the feeling of these worlds. And of course they're building upon the books, right? Dune, which is something that I haven't read. I'm embarrassed to say, but I've actually been trying to catch up on books and getting more into novels and reading things that I've missed out throughout the years. So it is something that I probably should read at some point. I'm embarrassed to say I only in the past few years even read the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So I finally got around to finishing those, I think last year or the year before. And well, that's a whole other video and topic, but a lot of it just has to do with my mind wandering as I'm reading. So I finally found ways to focus my attentions on the text and enjoy reading a lot of these fantastic novels. So this is definitely one I'll have to catch up on. I know usually probably better to read the book before the movie, but it's all right. I think I did okay. I even caught up with Jurassic Park and again, Lord of the Rings. And really, having watched the movies first wasn't that bad, because I could kind of use the visuals of the films to paint a picture for the characters in the books. And as long as the visuals are handled correctly within the movies, then I think it's fine. So with Dune, if I eventually get to that, I can use the visuals of this film. Even though I've seen the original Dune, it's been a long time since I've seen that, but I think I'll replace the visuals in the book with the characters and the landscapes within the new movies. But gosh, what else can I say without really spoiling anything? I don't know. Actors, the cast, top notch. I don't know what I could complain about. Is there anything that I could complain about? Is there anything that I could be negative about, or something I didn't like? Something I could critique? No, no. There wasn't anything I didn't like. All-star cast, fantastic, writing and dialogue and screenplay, and just whatever was attached to it, just it worked, and it all came together like a beautiful puzzle piece, or puzzle in general. And yeah, I don't think I could come up with anything bad to say about this one, but maybe I'm not that picky these days either. I tend to, I may have mentioned this in my last video, but I tend to enjoy entertainment in layers. If something isn't great, if the story isn't fantastic, I might say, okay, well, I'm not necessarily enjoying the story, but how about the visuals? How about the sound? How about the soundtrack, the score? Is it something that I can go home and grab from Apple Music and listen to? There have been plenty of movies that I haven't necessarily enjoyed, but maybe I've loved the soundtrack. And because I've taken the time to watch or see those movies, experience those movies, I've been able to get a good soundtrack out of it. So I think there's a lot that can be enjoyed if you start looking at things in layers, right? How's the acting? How's the dialogue? How's the action, the cinematography, the stunts, various things that I think you can enjoy, even out of films that maybe fall short in some areas or categories. So I think if you start to look at movies and even video games or any form of entertainment in terms of layers, I think you'll start enjoying things a lot more instead of just, flat out hating it because of one aspect. I'm not saying every movie or game is great and something that we can all enjoy. We all have different tastes and preferences, but I think for the most part, I've been able to enjoy a lot more these days based on this layer system that I've come up with. And in this one, it's a layer. It's a cake filled with wonderful layers and flavors that I enjoyed throughout. So I can't think of any complaints with this particular film or even part one. No, not really. It's just an enjoyable experience. A lot of characters, a lot of great characters. Some actors I try not to. I'll watch trailers to an extent. If I feel like a trailer is giving away too much information, I'll stop. I didn't really have that issue with Dune. There were some actors in the movie that I didn't know were going to be in the movie that I was pleasantly surprised to see, and they all did fantastic jobs. Again, I can't complain about the casting at all. So yeah, I can't think of anything. So ultimately, go see it, experience it, because they're in theaters for a limited time. And then eventually it comes down to either buying a Blu-ray or streaming it at home. But again, are you going to be able to replicate the cinema experience at home? Most of us probably not, unless you've got some incredibly amazing dedicated home theater. But even then, unless you're one of those like 1%ers that has a giant home cinema, how are you going to replicate Dolby Cinema or IMAX? For me, speaking of theaters and the differences between the theaters, where I live, I do have IMAX and Dolby as choices. However, a lot of the IMAXs are a little older. In some cases, we tend to refer to them as LIMAXs because you'll see the IMAX emblem on the outside of the theater, but maybe it's an older projector. Like my local or closest theater has both IMAX and Dolby. But the IMAX is really old. It's got an old xenon bulb projector, which means I think it's only like a 1080p display. Old seats, kind of an older sound system. It's not a great experience. You get the aspect ratio, but it's not as nice as my Dolby Cinema that has, a newer Dolby Vision projector, so you're getting better colors and contrast ratio. You're still getting a beautifully sized screen that's perfectly adequate, but you're not getting that IMAX expanded vertical aspect ratio that is kind of the selling point to the IMAX experience. I do have two other IMAX theaters that are about an hour away, 45 minutes to an hour away, and they do have the newer laser projectors, which means they'll do 4K, and I think there's even dual laser projector IMAXs out there, but there's not one near me. And again, though, different seating, different sound. It just doesn't compare to my Dolby. So I chose to see it in Dolby. I could potentially go see it again in IMAX. I don't know that I'm going to do that, though. So we'll see, but probably not. I think this is the last week to see it in the premium formats anyway, before it just goes to like a digital, smaller theater presentation. Because usually, I think where I live at least, you have about 2 weeks to see a major release. And then they get shifted out for other films, and then they go into like the smaller theaters. So I would see it as soon as possible, especially if you live near a premium format theater, Dolby Cinema or an IMAX. A friend of mine actually lives near what's called a THX Ultimate Theater, and that place looked insane. We don't have any of those where I live. I'm not even sure those are in this country, but there might be one or two somewhere, but I don't think one exists here. But yeah, there's so many different formats, especially when it comes to IMAX, like 70 millimeter IMAX, as well as a format that I don't think I can even experience. I think I'd have to drive like 4 hours to go see something like that. And supposedly there's only like 9 copies of that in the world. And so if you're lucky enough to live near something like that, you got to go see these movies. I'm telling you, go to your website for whatever your theater chain is. and see what kind of presentations they've got. Look up, Dolby Cinema, IMAX, 70 millimeter IMAX. Make sure you check the formats. Is it IMAX with a laser? Is it, xenon bulb? They'll kind of tell you on the website what it is and what kind of tech they're using so that you can get the best experience possible. But yeah, it's not always easy to get, the type of showing that, Christopher Nolan would like us to see, or whoever else. But if you can get close, if you can at least go see it, get some friends together, get some snacks, pre-pack those snacks, because I don't know, some of these movie theater snack costs are a bit wonky, but I guess that's how they make their money. So yeah, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's about it for today. I'm going to continue with these vlogs. They've been a lot of fun. Continue to work on them, maybe work on our production value here a little bit. Last week was kind of funny because I have some movie trailers in the background there, just a handful until I add a few more, but 3 of them got caught by YouTube's copyright claim algorithm, which is funny because they're, we've got depth of field here with the camera, so they're slightly blurred out. But it still managed to catch 3 of them. It mislabeled Jurassic Park as some TV show with David Spade in it or something, which was weird. And it straight up blocked the video. I had to go in and re-blur the trailers even more, or blur them even more than they already are, just to avoid copyright claims. But then, yeah, so I kind of removed those trailers. It seems to have some issues with Universal and I don't know, one other studio's, I guess, trailers, which I didn't think. They're not the full movies. They're just freely available trailers. But even the copyright algorithm seems to have an issue with that. So it's kind of a bummer. I don't know if this one's going to get hit. Not a big deal anyway. But with that said, I usually don't bug you guys too much about this. If you're enjoying these vlogs, if you're enjoying anything I make, a like would be appreciated. If you're not subbed and you'd like to sub, I of course would appreciate that as well. I don't usually ask this of you often. If you don't like it, you don't have to leave a like. You can dislike it, whatever you want to do. Comments, let me know how I'm doing, or if you have any questions or feedback about, these vlogs or the production or the future of this channel. Again, as of right now, there's no set scheduling. These might release on different days of the week. Sometimes I might skip a week or 2 or 3 or 4. It really just kind of depends on what else I'm doing. Again, this isn't necessarily my full-time gig as of right now. I've got a lot of other things going on with, the voice acting career and dabbling in sound design and art and things like that. I'm trying to learn a bit of Studio One for post-production sound and create my own immersive mixes. I'm actually trying to learn how to mix in Dolby Atmos, if you can believe that. So I'm looking forward to potentially sharing some of that content, although you won't really be able to listen to the Atmos stuff because that's usually either in a Blu-ray format or something that has to be streamed through an official format on a streaming device or something like that. But YouTube does support 5.1 surround if you are watching the YouTube app through a streaming stick like Amazon Fire TV or an Apple TV device or Roku or NVIDIA Shield, and you play your YouTube videos through those devices on a TV with a home theater receiver. If you have a 5.1 surround setup, you can actually watch specifically made 5.1 content on YouTube. And I might do that just for fun. It won't be really for viewership or anything, simply because most content on YouTube is watched or listened to through a mobile device, tablet, phone, so on and so forth, or just computer. So not really anything for the success of the channel, but really just for fun. I really love immersive sound content and enjoy making it, even if it's just for me. But anyways, again, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one.